welcome everyone to the ScreamCast. I'm your host, Sean Duregger, and in a unprecedented move, Brad had to bow out of this episode to take care of his dad, so we wish him the best on that. And Brian Saur is back in the house, everybody.
Hello.
It has been a while.
It has, sir. My apologies for my ridiculous crap and my schedule being as lame as it always has been.
No, it's all good, man. I mean, like we say all the time, we do this on our spare time, and trying to schedule 3 people is just utterly ridiculous. So with all of our crazy schedules, and yours is probably the craziest out of the 3. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on there. You've got one more kid than me, and but I respect anybody. My respect for anybody that does podcasts in general has gone way up. Realizing how tricky this can be.
Well, I mean, I've done few in the past, and I've always stopped doing them. But this one, we're soldiering on, and because I believe in it. Well, you recently had a chance to guest on a couple other podcasts. I wanted to give you a chance to kind of give those a plug.
Oh, sure. I was on first of one I was guesting on was The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. And those guys I go way back with. They were one of the early podcasts I started listening to when I was hardcore getting in, and started out as a listener, and eventually years ago now. God, it's weird that it's that long ago, but I started coming on the show occasionally, and then I started doing interviews as sort of a bonus material for their show. And that was a lot of fun. I haven't had any time for that sort of thing. But, so anyway, I hadn't been a guest on the show, and those gentlemen were nice enough to invite me on, and, they let me pick some movies. I don't know. Whenever I pick movies, it's always kind of a different, cause their wheelhouse is, sort of, I don't want to say schlocky action, because that's not they do more than that, but that's kind of
a lot of Michael Dudikoff.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's definitely big. Charles Bronson and Henry Silva are big over there. But we did Top Hat and, oh man, I'm blanking on the other movie because my brain's not working. But anyway, we did a couple movies that I picked, and, it was a lot of fun. So that was cool. And then, Ryan Gallagher of the Criterion Cast invited me on to a, very informal, sort of low-key, off-the-shelf episode, which is something he has done for a while, but hadn't done an episode of in a while, and that's just sort of running down a specific week's releases.
Okay.
And we dove into, Kino Lorber Studio Classics and some things that we don't necessarily talk about on this show because it's not horror-based stuff, but it's stuff I love to jabber about, and so it was fun. It was fun.
Cool. And since we've had you on, we've kind of changed our format of the show. We're not sticking strictly to Scream Factory releases anymore. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of comment on that.
I think it's great. In fact, I mentioned it on Off the Shelf on the Criterion Cast because I think it's an exciting direction to take the show, and I think it's only going to benefit our listeners because, the Screen Factory information and reviews are fantastic, and I love that we're dedicated to that, but they're, like you guys have said, and you said so eloquently in that episode where you branched out, I think there's just so much more out there, and, I think it's all about spreading the love a little more evenly, and that's great. I think it's a great move.
Well, I think so. And, part of the reason why we kind of were starting to, Brad and I were talking because the new releases that they were starting to flesh out weren't really as like exciting or jaw dropping, and all these other companies were having some stuff that like, holy shit, that's going to come out on like, Christmas Evil's going to come out on Blu-ray. What the hell,
Yeah.
So, I want to run through some of the new Scream Factory announcements, real quick here. And if I'm missing any, just let me know. There was a few that they announced since we've had our show last. They announced Supernova, which was kind of a weird one.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
And I know that there's a weird production history with that movie. And the only reason I can think of buying it is if they somehow find the Walter Hill cut, or if they have some crazy documentary explaining what the hell happened with that movie. Because it was one of those kind of just production nightmare type films. And then, the final product never ever made an impression on me.
I never saw it. I always meant to see it, but I never got a chance to see it. So I don't know. Yeah, that was an unusual one. I figured in my head that it was just sort of an MGM package deal kind of situation, you know, and felt like they could sort of wedge it in to the brand in a way. But yeah, it's an odd choice.
If they pull through on some special features, that's the only reason I think I would actually buy it. It's like, I can't believe that I'm going to say, like, I think I'm going to skip that release, you know?
Yeah.
Next up with another one that was, for me anyway, was just kind of blah or whatever. Didn't really have anything to comment on. But I do like the fact that they're releasing it on Valentine's Day, which is fun. It's a double feature of Love at First Bite and Once Bitten, two kind of vampire comedies, one starring Jim Carrey.
George Hamilton's in the other one.
Okay.
Because the kids love George Hamilton, you know.
Well, those are two I think I had seen when they first released or whatever on VHS or whatever. Never really, made an impression.
Yeah, I was a fan of Once Bitten as a youth and watched that one a lot. Love at First Bite I've seen once maybe, but I'm not as, I don't know, I'm not crazy excited, but I'm kind of interested in this horror comedy direction they're going. I don't know why. It's just because it's a new thing, and it opens up for some stuff, some nostalgia favorites, like maybe say Little Monsters or something like that.
Which, that one would be great.
I mean, it's not a great movie by any means, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is that direction maybe opens up for that kind of thing. So, I'm curious where they're going.
Yeah,
it's
me too.
Interesting.
Next up, an announcement, Vampire's Kiss and High Spirits double feature. And, Vampire's Kiss is just one of those batshit Nick Cage movies that I love.
Yeah, I do too. No, I'm really, pretty excited about that. Yeah. High Spirits, another choice that I've seen it. I don't have anything against the movie, but it was a little thrown by that one.
Yeah, that one I think I may have seen and fell asleep during or something like, I don't remember that one at all. So now we come to a couple titles that I'm actually really excited about. Blackula Scream and Blackula double feature, which just came out overseas, had a UK release. And did you get a copy of that?
I got a screener I was actually just watching that yesterday. Yeah, they're calling it the complete Blackula collection, which is kind of a little, because it's just two movies, but anyway. But yeah, no, so those look pretty good from what, I'm assuming the transfer will probably be the same, and they may have more extras. The Eureka Entertainment disc only has an interview with Kim Newman, who's the author of, a lot of stuff, but he wrote a book called Nightmare Movies that I know Edgar Wright counts as this, big seminal classic. But he's good. I mean, I think it's only a 22 minute interview. But so I'm sure Scream will have a little bit more than that to offer.
And, let's see. I can't remember if we're overlapping or not, because the last episode I basically recorded, edited, and went on vacation. So if we're overlapping, I apologize, and I'm sure Brad will let us know, next week if we overlap. But I want to talk with Brian about this shit, so leave me alone. Let's see here. So, next up it's an anthology movie, I believe, From a Whisper to a Scream.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And,
that's a cool one.
Now those are the types of titles I'm talking about. Like, that's something that we would have a lot of fun covering. I've never seen it.
Oh, it's good.
It's one of those that you kind of hear rumblings about, like whenever people bring up their top anthology films. Do you have any background on that one? Because
I like it. I'm a fan. I have the DVD and I've watched it a couple times. It's definitely up there, as far as anthology horror goes. Personally, in my opinion, Vincent Price is in it. It's a neat little movie and it's a good addition to the collection, that Scream Factory's got going, I think.
And that one has a couple great posters. I believe they're using both posters, and it doesn't look like they're going to do any custom art. They're just going to do both posters on like a flip.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a lot of custom art happening in this whole round, right?
Right. Yeah, these are no collector editions so far.
Yeah.
And then finally the one that I got stupid excited about, Ghoulies and Ghoulies 2 double feature. I have a warm place in my heart for the Ghoulies movies, at least these first two. Not so much for like Ghoulies Go to College and but these two, Ghoulies especially, like as a kid I wasn't allowed to watch it because it opens with some demonic ceremony.
Oh, wow, yeah. I forgot about all that.
With my background, that was we were not watching any movies with that sort of influence, but I'm very excited about that double feature. So that's it. I mean, there's like I said, no collector's editions. There's even like no announcements as far as any double features. Is all to be announced. So if anything ridiculous happens, like if they pull something out for Supernova and it causes us to turn our heads, we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. But that was one of those that always ended up in the DVD super bargain bin for like $1.
Yeah.
So
I will say this is an exciting time in that. What are they calling it something specific where they're announcing so many titles? It's
Shocktober? I don't know, something like that.
There you go. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I just think it's neat when you're kind of eyeing up their Twitter and Facebook page to kind of go, okay, what is it? Cause you really just don't have, especially like I said with those horror comedies, you have no idea what's coming.
Yeah.
So it's a fun time in that respect.
Yeah. They did say they were kind of moving to a different direction this next year in 2015. Brad and I were talking about, it looks like it's more, kind of more mainstream-ish type titles, like stuff that they know that they can sell. They're not taking a lot of chances so far, with their titles, except for I think the biggest chance would be From a Whisper to a Scream, because not a lot of people, and have heard about that one or even are expecting it. So, but, yeah, it should be fun, So that's it for the Scream Factory releases that I've noticed were coming out. Vinegar Syndrome announced, I don't know if we talked about this last time or not, but Christmas Evil is coming out on Blu-ray. It's from a 4K scan. And they just announced a package, I got an email trying to find it with, I don't really go for their packages because, that involves, X-rated movies. But, Pretty Peaches is another, they're releasing, Pretty Peaches, Murder on the Emerald Seas, and then Christmas Evil is kind of the, along with some
October slate.
Yeah, along with some sort of some Peakorama double feature. Murder on the Emerald Seas is a free with this package deal while supplies last. And it's funny because I've never heard of that movie, and I'm always interested in checking out movies I haven't seen. And I for a second considered getting this package. But then I realized, most of this package is going to be kind of X-rated 70s porn. So it's like, no, it's okay. I'll just stick with Christmas Evil.
Christmas Evil I'm very excited about. Especially that's another one I just didn't necessarily. I think the DVD's been in and out of print.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's currently in print. I could be wrong. But yeah, to have a nice. They've done a good job with their Blu-rays. I mean, obviously,
the transfers have been surprisingly, good.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about them, and they haven't even announced the rest of the year yet. So I'm kind of curious because I'm sure they'll have some more horror titles. It seems to be a direction they're going.
Yeah.
Or horror / batshit crazy with stuff like Off Force and things.
Right.
So yeah, so that's cool. They're one to watch for sure.
They seem to let kind of just be a month in advance, like, hey, releasing this next month, type thing. But I pre-ordered Christmas Evil because I always love watching horror movies around Christmas time, the Christmas themed horror movies. So that'll be fun to add to my lineup. I need to finally jump in and get Black Christmas now, and then my lineup for now will be complete.
Awesome.
Gosh, I can't remember if we covered the Scorpion titles, like Mortuary and what were those other ones? They had a kind of a package deal.
Island Claws, Don't Answer the Phone, Girly, and I think that's it. There might have been one more, but I think that's it. I'm excited about Island Claws for some reason.
Yeah, well, I pre-ordered Mortuary and Island Claws.
Yeah.
So
I saw a VHS of it not that long ago, and it's pretty silly, but again, another one that you just can't believe is hitting Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Are those October or November titles? I forget.
October.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
and I think you guys already talked about the Andy Milligan stuff from Code Red. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, we.
Yeah, you did. That's right. I remember because I remember Brad made the comparison I thought was really cool, which is that it's very much in the sort of Herschel Gordon Lewis kind of school. I know of him and I have the book about him. But I haven't seen his stuff, so I'm kind of excited about those coming out.
Yeah. So speaking of Code Red, we didn't mention the title that we're talking about today.
That's right.
We are going to talk about a Code Red release, which I thought I thought that would never happen on this show. But we were trying to, it's always, with three of us trying to choose which titles we're going to talk about. All of us have our different tastes. And Brad's very much into slashers, so he was wanting to do Graduation Day, which I really want to cover, hopefully within the next 2 episodes. But I was like, man, can we take a break from slashers? So this is kind of a slasher though, but kind of not. But it has enough kind of batshit weird stuff in it to kind of keep it interesting for me. But we're going to be talking about Nightmare this week, 1981 film horror flick. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But before I jump into that, though, I do want to. There is some announcements here as far as like the Halloween 4 audio sync issue that I talked about and was all pissed off about.
Yes, sir.
They finally released a statement, and what looks like what happened is Scream Factory found out about it. They had to go to Anchor Bay and kind of prod and pry their, some sort of statement out of them. Because if you remember, Scream Factory, they were the ones that came out with some sort of a statement on behalf of Anchor Bay. So, finally, this week here, we finally got an announcement about the audio sync issue, acknowledging the audio sync issue. Mm-hmm. And it looks like what happened was there was a slight audio issue on the last pressing, which I never noticed. They tried to fix that. And of course, if you try to fix something and later down the line, if you've ever done video production, and editing, sometimes if you fix one little thing, it throws everything else off, which looks like is what happened when they tried to fix some sort of other issue on this repressing. So I'll put a link in the show notes here, but if you bought the set, there's an email address you can email. You have to provide your proof of purchase, which would be like a scan of the receipt or the email confirmation that you got when you bought the set, your name and mailing address, and it looks like they'll be shipping out a free disc in November 14th.
Nice. So they're not actually asking you to send the disc in like Criterion does.
Right.
Cool.
Not yet anyway. I haven't got an email back yet, but I jumped on that and sent out my email, cause they're only accepting emails through October 31st.
Oh wow. Okay. I gotta do that.
Yeah. So get on it, as soon as possible. Some of these companies, they'll let it go a year. It makes it, I kind of understand a little bit. I mean, this is almost the first type of issue Scream Factory's had to address with a production quality issue.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about Anchor Bay, if they've had this in the past. I feel like they have. They've been around longer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at some point I feel like they must have.
But they're owned by Stars, so who knows the kind of hoops that they had to jump through, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To do this. So that's good news. I'm a little less aggravated. But the cool thing was I bought the old release and then Amazon gave me a $7 credit. So I got my own replacement program,
Nice.
And so anyway, that's what's going on with that. And then I wanted to bring up ScorpioReleasing had a statement about their Killer Fish Blu-ray.
Oh yeah.
And it was supposed to be, they were promoting it as an uncut version of Killer Fish. It actually looks like through some snafus with the studio, they released the PG-rated theatrical US version. Which I guess the only difference is it omits a few seconds off a death scene towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty apologetic about it, but yeah, I mean, stuff happens, I mean, what was he saying? He was saying that basically he could either discontinue it. There's no way that he was going to be able to afford to repress or retransfer. So I don't know. I think that's a nice way to handle it. I mean, I guess he could offer refunds or something, but that's a small company like that. What are you going to do?
Yeah. And the thing with Scorpion, what I wanted to bring up ScorpioReleasing is, they're very much in the same boat as Code Red. I think, and these are brothers, I believe. There's William Olsen, who runs Code Red, right? And then is it Walter Olsen?
I can't remember
his name.
Brad knows this. Yeah.
Brad would know this. He's punching himself in the face right now, unless he just ramble. But so one of the guys seems to have his business in order as far as, I guess promoting the brand, right?
Yeah.
And,
well,
and
he's
handling things like this.
Yeah, I mean, he's working with Diabolic DVD in this last case to do those 4 pre-orders, and I think that's that's one step in the right direction, to having a website like that has a sort of a base of people that buy from them, and partnering with that as sort of a distribution thing, kind of like Twilight Time does with Screen Archives. Yep. I think that's easier than trying to do it yourself, like Bill from Code Red does. Yeah. I think it might be smart if he tried something like that. I
know, and that's the frustrating thing, because Bill seems to operate kind of off the cuff.
Yeah.
And where his releases, the movies that he chooses and gets the rights to, are super interesting and a lot of fun to discover if you can grab them. And the whole problem has been his web store, especially when he goes around with meetings. He's meeting different distributors and different people, like people who own the rights to these other movies, and he's traveling, but he runs the store. So there's times where he's traveling, like going to LA and everything, and he brings, I guess, a few boxes of some titles so he can basically pay for his trip. And he'll open up his store whenever he needs money. And this looks like this happens during the summertime. Which he seems to be travel a lot more during the summertime. It's codereddvd.bigcartel.com. It's up right now, and the joke is throughout the summer was, the store's up, better get your orders in. And there's many times at 2 a.m. I'm getting ready to go to bed, and all of a sudden someone pops up and says, the store's up, and I'm like, oh shit, I better do this. Which actually looks like he just put up the Redeemer. Oh man.
Oh, really?
FYI, the Redeemer is up on the site.
Oh, I thought maybe it was out. He was out of them. That's interesting to know.
Adding to cart. Anyway, that's what I've been hoping you'd throw up there. So the way these guys operate are it's like night and day. It's like you hope that Bill kind of looks at what Scorpion's doing and kind of follows suit with, I always pronounce it wrong. Is it Diabolique?
Diabolic.
Diabolic. God, why do I always want to say Diabolique? Is there some weird?
Nah, I don't know.
Diabolic.
Yeah.
It sounds more, exotic. When you say it.
It does. It definitely does. It does.
But Diabolic. And that would make more sense. But, anyway, we'll see what happens with that. So, anyway, let's jump into talking about Nightmare. I wanted to ask you before we started, when did you first hear about Code Red? Cause for me, I started learning about Code Red, number one, cause they did, 2 films partnered with Scream Factory for, Final Exam. And there was one other one. Cause if you look on the spine, it says Code Red and then Scream Factory. So that's the first time that I heard about kind of Code Red and talked to Brad about it.
I've been with them for a little while because I'm trying to remember. I mean, back before he did Blu-rays. Well, I know there was one. I think there was something before this, but I saw a screening of a movie called Julie Darling, and it was Zach Carlson and Lars Nilsson, who were programming for the Alamo Drafthouse at the time, came to LA and did 2 or 3 nights at the New Beverly. And this was this crazy movie they programmed about this girl who is super weird and kind of obsessed with her dad, who's like dating this girl, and she's kind of like jealous of the girl, and it's super weird. But anyway, I was like, well, that movie's nuts. But it was so much fun to watch. I'm like, I'd kind of like to have that on DVD. And I started looking around, and right around that time, I think Code Red had it on their schedule, and I was like, well, that's cool. What is this company? And then I think I started to follow them, and then they started to come out with things like Messiah of Evil on DVD, which is now coming out on Blu-ray, which is really cool. And then Rituals, which is a Canadian sort of take on Deliverance. So he started putting out some really interesting stuff, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to just keep an eye on these guys and see what else. But yeah, so I've sort of been watching them. But I think the tricky part is that because he does so little promotion for himself, and then of course is mystified by how little he sells, I always forget, because you really have to make an effort with them. I mean, it's nice with social media because people do remind you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think at this point too, especially because, you know, he's starting to list some new stuff, that it's easier to remember to keep checking. But there are a lot of times where I'll just go, you know, huge gaps where I'll forget to go and check his site. And there's no news anywhere because he doesn't really make it known that much. So anyway, it's just one that I like to try and keep track of if I think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, oh man.
The Redeemer. Thanks for the heads up on that, by the way.
I know, huh? God, I keep telling myself I'm gonna stop buying movies, and then stuff like this happens. I went on vacation for a week. I came back to like a stack of movies in my mailbox.
Nice.
And that's when you realize you have a problem. You know, it's like, Jesus Christ, man.
No, I'm with you, man.
It's a curse, people. But I always tell my wife, like, look, I could be addicted to heroin, okay? Or, you know, I could be slinging pot. I don't know. But
I've tried that with my wife, but she doesn't go for that one as much.
They're still keeping an eye on the checkbook.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
they're just like, well, regardless, you know, your kid's not going to college, so yeah.
Hey, there's student loans out there. I did a student loan.
Exactly.
Still paying mine off.
Scholarships, you know, that's what we're talking about. And who needs college anyway? Honestly, I'm just kidding.
I was just spent half the week with my uncle who didn't go to college, and he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
He's the president of many companies.
Very nice. Very nice.
So, you know, I don't know. Now I don't know what to tell my kids. You know, go to college and do a podcast like your dad, or skip college and be an awesome bullshitter and make your way. Yeah.
Watch movies regardless.
Yep. All right. I need to tell my uncle he needs to write a book called The Art of Bullshitting, which isn't a bad. I mean that in the most admirable respect. Like the guy's amazing. Like he can spin a yarn, and it's just love having some drinks and talking to him because he's always has stories. So anyway, that's family time with Sean. So let's move in. Let's move into talking about 1981's Nightmare.
Yes, sir.
I just watched this last night, and this thing is, I don't even have words to describe it. It's what's the plot here? We got I
have the wiki up here.
The wiki's all wrong.
Is it really?
I was looking at it last night, like, all right, how am I gonna, so basically there's some sort of mental patient.
So wait, is this wrong too? A mental patient who is troubled with horrible nightmares has escaped from his hospital. Now on the streets, he can't help killing innocent people. But there's one family he is more than interested in, and when he tries to kill them, he finds it's not really that easy. I guess that kind of works. That doesn't really, I don't know, because I was watching it and I was taking notes on things. I mean, it's also known by the name Nightmares in a Damaged Brain.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, anyway, I'll let you roll with your stuff, dude. But yeah, it's one of those movies that kind of gives you pause and you go, how to encapsulate. It's difficult.
Well, he doesn't necessarily escape. He's released on some sort of honor system or something. Like he's released, but he has to check in with his psychiatrist or whoever, because they believe that they've come up with some sort of cure for his, whatever's he's been facing, which apparently did involve murder of some sort as a child.
Yes.
So he's let loose, apparently in the New York porn district. And, it's just, the thing about this film is it doesn't follow the standard slasher, tropes. It does have some tropes that it falls into. But it seems like it kind of has fun with them, you know, and cause it's almost two movies too. You got the family, you have, this mom and her kids, and she's having a rough time raising her kids. She has a boyfriend, who has the most gorgeous beard known to man. And
yeah, he's a sweet guy.
He generally is, you know, and you have that story, and then you have the story of this released, mental patient, our main, so it's not like we don't know who the killer is or anything like that. You'd know full well, you know, who the killer is. It's just you don't know where the hell the story's gonna go.
Yeah.
So, what's your experience with this film? Was this, first time for you? Had you somehow seen it before?
I had not, but I had heard, this is another one, interestingly, that I think Zach Carlson put in my head, because when he was programming for the Draft House for Terror Tuesday, I know at some point he programmed it under the title Nightmares in a Damaged Brain, and whenever he would program something that I'd never heard of, I would kind of perk up a little bit and go, okay, wait a minute, what is this? Mm-hmm. And so yeah, but I'd heard of it, but I'd never seen it. And in fact, I have to be honest in knowing I didn't even realize that this Nightmare was that same movie, Nightmares in a Damaged Brain, where I would have bought the Blu-ray sooner, because I always meant to see it. So I hadn't seen it until this week.
Nice.
So yeah, it was interesting.
And this is one that people have been kind of clamoring for, you know, that it was on the site, off the site, people are going crazy, people are scalping it on eBay.
Yeah.
Bill even put it up on eBay when he didn't have it on a store, and he put it up on eBay for like $10 more. And guess who was suckered into buying it? Me.
Oh.
Well, because Brad sent me a text. It's out of print and there's like 4 left, you know.
Now, of course, it's available on the site.
Available. It is available on the site right now. It is a limited copy.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I have a feeling it. Yeah, with these, that's the other thing about his stuff, is that it makes me antsy, because you just, you don't know. I mean, obviously, if you pre-order a bundle, like say that new bundle, you know you're in good shape, probably. Right. But beyond that, it's really hard to say, once it comes out, how long these things are going to last. Like, for instance, I thought the Redeemer was totally out.
Yeah, me too.
Wow, he's got a whole shitload of stuff on the site right now.
He's back, everybody.
That's so weird, man.
Hopefully by the time people are listening this, you know what I mean? Like, You can go to the site today, you're listening to the show, you can go to his site today, and what we're talking about may not even be there.
Yeah. No, you're right. We shouldn't even say anything.
I know,
who knows if it's actually gonna, but anyway.
Well, this is directed by Romano Scavolini, and was not familiar with his filmography other than the 1985 kind of Italian Vietnam spaghetti nom movie called Dogtags, which I'm only aware of because of the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema fellas, and that following them on the Facebook page. I see this one pop up every now and then, and the poster is incredible. I mean, the poster looks like basically the Contra, the Contra poster or the Contra box.
Nice.
But the poster is fantastic, and I would like to track down Dogtags. I think everyone's been watching it on the YouTubes.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know this guy's stuff at all. I bet you Brad is familiar with him, but
right.
Savage Hunt sounds interesting. But yeah, I'm not familiar with his stuff at all outside of this movie now.
Yeah, and the thing is, both of us probably didn't have time to watch any of the interviews or anything. Or the
no, I wanted to try and get to the commentary. There's multiple commentaries. It's actually a pretty decent set from Bill on this one. But yeah, sadly, I didn't get to it either.
Yeah.
But I know fans of the movie will be pleased with all these extras. It's like it would be the equivalent of a Scream Factory collector's edition, really, as far as the extra content.
I think so. Like, I was surprised. I was expecting this to be just some sort of bare bones. But we'll talk about those in a second. However we can. I do want to run through those, but this movie, and I would you recommend people check out this movie?
I think there's a certain semi-adventurous horror fan that, well, also, I mean, one of the big draws is that Tom Savini is one of the effects dudes on it. I think
actually, no, I think he denies it.
Oh, he denies it. Does he really?
Like vehemently denies it, and it seems like
that's so weird. Why do they actually give him credit on the film? They just were fucking around, I guess.
I don't know if they did it just to sell, because there is the only extra that I did watch was an interview with the makeup artist, Clev Hall. And he was brought in saying that he would be an assistant, and then all of a sudden he got there and they're like, all right, you're it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, even the wiki page, you're right, says, the film also garnered controversy for claiming in its press material that Tom Savini had, it's press material, I mean, it's in the credits of the movie. I mean, it's beyond that Tom Savini had provided the film special effects, which Savini denied. Yeah, so that's interesting. Well, that's so weird because now I can't go back and rewatch the movie with that in mind. And while I was watching it, I was thinking of the effects are not bad, and they remind me of the stuff he was doing around that time. I mean, you've got some severed head action. Yeah. You've got just general entrails. You've got stuff that I thought looked pretty good. I would say like Gorehounds would appreciate this movie for sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one to recommend, I guess, as a blind watch, but I can see why it has the following that it has, kind of, because it is kind of crazy. And I mean, there's this whole sort of subplot with the main character sort of having been brainwashed by like a government agency, kind of, and so that's a whole thing that's kind of weird, but yeah, he's definitely sort of out of control. I thought there was a good tension to it in that the dude is so unhinged and capable of killing any and everyone in the movie, and there's kids around,
right? You know? and no one is safe. And you know, I it's like I want to recommend it, but then I kind of don't want to recommend it. But I want to recommend it on the fact that it doesn't, like I've said, it doesn't follow a standard kind of slasher fare. Like there's not that high of a body count. There's some ridiculous gore in a couple of scenes. Some involving dreams or nightmares that he's having as a patient. And but I think you don't know what's going to happen. And that's my problem with most slashers is I know what's going to happen. I know who's going to survive. It almost goes into like Spielberg territory with the kids, where all of a sudden the kids forced to make like adult decisions to save the day, you know, and the kid actors aren't as good as something you'd see in Goonies or whatever, but there's that aspect to it, which I enjoy because I like seeing kids in peril and kids, you know, needing to make adult decisions, you know.
Yeah, there was a part of me that when I was watching it, did you ever see the movie, the recent movie called We Need to Talk About Kevin?
No. I have actively avoided that one.
Well, yeah, it's a tough watch. My wife and I watched it, and it's basically about a woman who's dealing with this kid that she's raising that is just like pure evil. I mean, he is just, there's something off, and it's this whole examination of, you know, sort of a nurture versus nature, like what causes a kid to be this evil. But there was a part of me that when I was watching this, the kid starts to do, some strange stuff, and I'm like, oh, is this going in that direction? You know, like, is this kid gonna, you know, and obviously that, you know, what I didn't totally realize, but the wiki seems to indicate is that he's at his ex-wife's house. He's going, and I guess those are his kids, and so you're kind of like, you're thinking, you know, like father, like son kind of craziness or something like that. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, is the movie going that way? Yeah, so that was just another sort of, what movie am I watching? Not necessarily in a bad way, but in that way of like, oh, it's not doing what I expect it to do. So that's interesting.
Right. And to me, since we see so many movies, it's funny because I feel like I don't see enough movies, but my friends and family are like, yeah, you see way too many movies. You know? But we've seen the same types of movies over and over again. That I think this movie to me was kind of a breath of fresh air. And I'm wondering how it was received back in 81. I'm assuming it wasn't received theatrically that well, just because it's one of those we haven't really heard about. I've heard about all the major ones, you know, like Dawn of the Dead, Friday the 13th, you know, all those were coming out in the early 80s, and we hear about all those, but we never hear about this one, you know. And I have some other notes here about I love these movies set back in the 80s because you can kind of see like that snapshot of just the disgusting side of New York. You know, whenever people talk about New York, I'm always thinking, you know, I don't know if it's called the red light district or whatever, but it's that whole strip of X-rated theaters and all that kind of stuff. And the streets are just disgusting. And it's like they just had the star or the killer, I forget his name, just walking down with a tracking shot, you know, going along the street. And you can tell people are noticing the camera. You know, one of the dudes even kind of bends down and looks and does like a pose. You know, this guy just walking down the street and people are kind of looking at the camera. But that area is just so disgusting that, you get a feel for it. And I also like that, Sister Street Fighter and Five Deadly Venoms are on a marquee as he's walking
that was
by.
cool. That was cool.
You know, and that was just there. You know what I mean? It wasn't done for nostalgia factor. That was there.
Yeah, no, I love a movie like this for that respect of like all the locations are probably not set dressed in any way much. And there's probably some real people wandering in and out of the frame because they don't have the budget to control, extras and other people, you know, and it's all gravy as far as they're concerned because, those people that are in the 42nd Street or those shots that you're talking about definitely don't take you away from the movie. For me, it adds to that creepy, dirty feeling that you get.
And that section in particular, man, I mean, I've never gone to those types of places, never even considered it. So whenever I see these types of movies, it's almost like my only experience with those types of things, like peep shows and stuff like that, is through movies like this. And this was just, you just feel kind of just dirty, you know, especially the peep show scene, which I was surprised it went to some places that I wasn't expecting. Now this is the uncut version, and I know that on one of the wikis or somewhere it said the filmmaker had to go to jail for like 18 months or something like that because he wouldn't cut the film down. Which I don't know where this was on this was on the Video Nasties list, I believe, in the UK.
I think you're right.
And he's an Italian filmmaker, so he had to go to jail, and I don't know if it was Italy or wherever, but I'm wondering if it was for that scene, because that's the only scene I can think of, you know, it would be like kind of over the line. You would never see that, you know, in any R-rated film.
No.
The depths that goes.
Well, yeah, there's a ton of stuff that you wouldn't see in an R-rated film today just because it's sort of gone out of vogue to, especially the gore stuff, which is, it's somewhere between now that I'm thinking about it, somewhere between Tom Savini and Herschel Gordon Lewis. But I don't mean, cause it looks good. Like, and not to say that Herschel Gordon Lewis's effects don't, but they're definitely on a lower level than Savini. He's, you know, a master. So there's something about him that are just, the whole thing is very dirty and scummy, and it's one of those movies that makes you feel a certain way while watching it, you know, kind of like, I don't know.
But it's still kind of heightened. It's not like a movie like Maniac where you're just like, ugh, you know.
Yeah, no, it's funny, but I thought of it in comparison to Maniac a little bit, but nothing can touch that movie, you know, as far as the dirty feeling.
So you have a layer of grime when you're done watching that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
The original, not the Elijah Wood one. I haven't watched that yet, but
But I found a review on Letterboxd that I really like. And this guy says, occupies a really strange middle ground between ineptitude and actual haunting filmmaking that I've never quite seen anywhere else. I also really love the idea of a slasher being recruited by a top secret government research lab to be turned into a controlled killer. Makes me wonder if it was ever the plot of a proposed Halloween sequel.
Huh.
I think that's a really interesting insight. That's from Joe Gibson.
Right.
There's like, he is totally right. There is this part of the, that structural stuff that we're talking about where you don't know what's happening, where you're like, okay, well, is this just a total accident? This is just a filmmaker that doesn't know what they're doing, and that's why we're not getting the structure? Or is there just some tiny little bit of, deliberateness and, craftsmanship? You know, you kind of want to, you feel like you should probably err on the side of, a person that doesn't know what they're doing. But regardless, the end result is a film that is not exactly predictable. So that, either way.
And I think this is the only horror movie that this director did. Well, I can't read Italian, so I don't know what these other titles are on IMDb. But but yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about more aspects of the movie that my notes, I just kind of write random stuff down. So if this seems like random, forgive me, but, I wrote, Mother of the Year.
Oh God.
Your introduction to her is she's in bed, probably doesn't have any clothes on, and her kid's like, all right, Mom, I'm going to school. And she's like, okay. And the kids go out the door. And at that time, I thought she only had one kid, and it's not until later you realize she has 3. So you're like, this mother is just letting her kids do whatever. And, throughout the movie, you realize there's probably a reason why she just doesn't care. She's just beat down and, things that have happened in her life, But it's just kind of ridiculous. And she's screaming at her kids but there's almost a realism to it because I'm a father of 3. And there's times where my wife and I, we're like, outside looking in, we look like crazy people. We had an episode at a barbecue place on the way on 9 hour, we had a 9-hour drive back on vacation in the middle of this, halfway through the drive and we're in this barbecue place and we're frustrated because, number one, it came out to be like way more than we thought it would be from price tag. Which is to be expected with barbecue. But we're the crazy family in the room, right?
Yeah,
kids are going ridiculous.
Yeah. That's the worst. I've had that on occasion and you have a better excuse than that. You have 3 and I have 2 and only one that really causes a problem. And so that's even worse. Well, not worse, but like to be the when you realize you're that family.
Right, exactly.
It's just like, oh no.
So I have little flashbacks here like, oh shit, I hope I don't look that bad.
Yeah, I think you're good.
But I jotted down, this punk ass kid needs some discipline, which I think is things you're supposed to be feeling. Like the kids obviously don't have a father figure in their life. You have this hippie, boating, pirate loving type guy, who's, he's landed a hot, hot woman who happens to have 3 kids. He doesn't know if he wants to commit or not, but, he's there and he realizes maybe he needs to step up a little bit. So that's was kind of a cool aspect to the film. There's just one weird scene in the airport where there's no ADR at all, but there's obviously a conversation going on. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
I kind of got to err on the side of amateur filmmaking
Something
there.
Didn't go right where they just left it in. But then I want to get down to the babysitter, which is the worst. Also, you think the mom's bad? This is the worst babysitter, who's always taking showers. And that's the horror movie trope that I feel like the director wanted to kind of fit in. Like everyone, you always have a shower scene in these horror movies. And for some reason, and it's always like people, like, one movie I recently watched, even like with like Sleepaway Camp, there's one of the girls decides, oh, I'm just going to go take a shower, at a weird time, you know what I mean? So that's kind of a trope. And I noticed that like before I ever saw Psycho, there was like an after school special where the kids were making a horror movie. Did you ever, back in the 80s, everyone, we had these things called after school specials.
Oh yeah.
Where you would have like an hour-long drama and learn a lesson about life. That's when I first learned about gay people. We did on an after school special, but there was one where these kids were making a horror film and it was probably the first like, they flipped it. It was a guy in the shower. They're trying to film it, and film a killer, but it was a really weird thing to watch, after school special. But, that was my first introduction, I think, to shower scenes other than the Psycho scene, because as a kid I didn't really watch a whole lot of horror movies. But yeah, this one has 2 random shower scenes. One makes sense because the boyfriend's over and,
Yeah.
But yeah, she's just the worst babysitter.
Yeah, she's terrible.
Anyway, I think those are all the notes that I have. Oh, there's a Sid Haig mask. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
It looks just like Sid Haig.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, it totally does. And I wish it was more commercially available.
That would be amazing. Anyway, those are my random thoughts. Did you have any random thoughts going through?
Yeah, I have a few more, but, the opening is a really tricky thing because it walks, again, that line between amateurish and, deliberate in that there's a lot of dream sequence stuff happening. There seems to be, you're in and out of this guy's like crazy head basically. And it's sort of, but then there's also some cross cutting to, his ex-wife, I guess. And so it is very jarring, and not necessarily in a way that I was like, okay, fuck this movie, but It was more like, is this a dream? Wait, no, is this a dream?
Yeah.
And so you're engaged and kind of caught up in the what the fuckitude of it. And, so I don't know. There's just something very, strange about that opening.
What did you think about kind of the title card, like not title cards, but like because they break the film up like day 1, day 2 or whatever, and the final day. So you kind of know stuff's coming to an end. Did you like that aspect of the movie?
I thought it was an odd choice. Yeah. But I guess it was some attempt at structuring, right, to kind of show, how the story was progressing in some way. So to give us a sense also, in a way, I guess it makes it's helpful when you're dealing with a filmmaker that doesn't handle structure that well to go, okay, these events take, especially when you're dealing with an opening that has all the sort of scattered, flashbacky / cause he's remembering stuff from his childhood and some event that may or may not, that I guess happened,
right,
with his dad, and then you get to finally see the full, scene of at the end. It's so those are, I think, are helpful just to kind of give you a sense of like where you are in the story and that these scenes follow these scenes, etc.
I'm trying to imagine it without those, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think it's like you said, like I think after the crazy beginning, you almost need something to center.
Yeah, just sort of
center the viewer and kind of, okay, here we go. Okay, we're on day 1 now. Okay.
But I like that kind of confusing, trippy opening. There's a thing I have with, cause real early within the first like 2 minutes, there's a shot of him in an institution being restrained and he's screaming. Mm-hmm. And there's something to me, and I know this sounds kind of, I don't know, misogyny, I don't know what it is, but like, guys screaming in movies really freaks me out more than gals, and I don't know what it is about that. If there is a sense of like powerlessness, that I mean, women are certainly expressing that when they scream in a movie, but they're also kind of like just expressing like, "Hey, I'm freaked out." But with guys, and especially in this case, there's this sense of like, shit is just so wrong. Things are out of control. I don't know what's going on, that it just really disturbs me. I just do not like to see men screaming in this way.
We're kind of programmed that way. You look at these movies, especially 70s and 80s, men were the, macho, like I'm going to take care of business, I'm going to save the girl.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be the calm and collected one. You always see that in, especially the 70s and 80s where the, kind of before, I guess there's more like strong women introduced into more mainstream movies and, but yeah, usually in a movie like this, when you're seeing, especially in these areas, you see a guy scream, he's the wimp, you know what I mean? Or he's the coward or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But in this case, it's just, and he goes all out too.
Yeah, I mean, he's really letting loose. And again, that's in the first like 2 minutes of the movie. So there's a part of me that, like, in my head, I sort of make accounts of things that bother me about a movie, not necessarily like are done badly, but just like, as far as movies I want to come back and watch again, when that kind of thing happens, I'm like, okay, there's something I may just skip through the next time. I know that sounds so weird because I'm a relatively seasoned movie watcher and a lot of things don't bother me, but for some reason that really bothers me. I don't know why it is. I'm trying to think if I had one other note. Well, there's a bit where the mom character who, is pretty negligent, gets a phone call from her kids, and one of them is apparently injured. And from the point of view of a parent, it's the worst phone call you can get.
Right.
It's like, I forget the kid's name, but it's like he's on the floor and he's covered with blood, is the call. And, that is just the most, especially when you're not able to get there because she's like on a boat hanging out with her hippie boyfriend and she has to get back. So, from a parent's point of view, even as silly as this movie can be, I was just kind of like on edge, like,
No,
oh
me
my
too,
God,
man.
that's the worst. That I couldn't imagine getting that phone call.
I think that was the most effective scene in the movie as far as bringing any sort of terror into the film. That I felt like they did a really great job with that, because I felt it. And maybe you have to be a parent to feel it, maybe.
Yeah.
But, but man, oh man, what that was pretty tense.
Yeah.
I will honestly say I kind of sat to the edge of my seat and was like, oh shit, what's going to happen here? Like, is this kid going to die like right here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No, and the movie definitely sets up an environment where that could happen. So, you know.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, I think that's all my notes. It's
cool.
it's a very interesting movie. I'm glad I now own it. I'm going to hang on to it. Are you going to keep your copy? Are you going to hold on to it, you think?
I think so. And I kind of battled with that. I was like, and in my collecting, I'm trying to gear more my collection to, things that are kind of rare and out there. And this definitely, falls into there.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to talk about the audio and visual presentation, because it looks like, and I think what Bill does is he'll get the best negative he can find, the best print or whatever he can find, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think he uses prints with his stuff more often than, say, Scream Factory, where they'll try and get an inner positive or some closer to the negative source.
Yeah.
But it seems like the films he chooses are probably coming from collectors, and so he's not necessarily going to get the most pristine transfer, but for
a film like this, I kind of like the scratches and stuff.
No, I do too.
Things kind of popping up in there. It looks great. It looks like it's projected onto your, TV. You know what I mean? Looks like you're watching a projection. And I'm glad they didn't, number one, he doesn't have the money to do all the cleanups that like Criterion does, or I'm not sure how Scream handles their restorations. They seem to be select on what movies they decide to clean up and don't.
Yeah, I don't think they do many, because I think I heard something like $30,000 to retransfer a movie or something, and I think that depends, but I think they're doing mostly available masters with their stuff.
Yeah.
And Bill's at least having to get the film transferred, because I know there's an uncut version of this movie on YouTube, and I just checked that out, and that's clearly from a VHS tape, and it looks pretty crappy. Yeah. And this is obviously a huge improvement over that. So,
definitely.
But yeah, I kind of like the character that it has with the film sort of scratches and things like that.
Yeah. And I've seen, if you follow, I've been off and on following Code Red on Facebook. But there was a time where there's a certain movie he'd collected like 5 different 35 millimeter copies of a certain film, and he's trying to find, which one am I going to use? So it looks like he watches each one and decides which is the best one, and then if it's beat up, he's like, is this going to go to DVD, or am I going to try to do Blu-ray of this? If it's too beat up, it looks like he just throws it on DVD. So this one, I'm wondering how he had to do it. I wonder if he had actually, I don't think he re-edits. I think he just tries to find the best possible transfer and then sticks with it and releases.
Oh, so he doesn't do the thing that Scream does, where he'll find one reel here and swap and
I don't think so. Maybe, if there's reels, maybe he does that. Maybe.
Yeah.
But for what it is, man, this is the best you're going to see this movie. And
it's never going to look better.
There are some audio pops. There's obviously wasn't like restoration done, but for this movie, and for a lot of movies, like if it came out of this era, like the 70s and 80s, I'm fine with those. Yeah. I'm fine with things not being pristine as long as it looks like a film. And this definitely has that look. It looks like you're watching a film. It looks and sounds like you're watching a film.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was great. The wealth of special features on here, it's like I can't wait to kind of dive into these. I started watching the making of kind of special feature that they edited together. It looks like half of these are like a VHS, like he just threw up a cheap camera with no mics or anything and just recorded the interviews. Whoever did these. So it's not really very well produced. Doesn't have a polish.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times you can have the most polished special feature and you learn nothing. At least these are kind of honest interviews with everyone. I saw the one with Cleve Hall interview. Was it Cleve Hall? or was it with Edward French? I don't know. One of the effects guys. I could be messing up the name, but you know, it's interesting to hear because you, like I said, you always you saw Tom Savini's name. It's interesting to hear this guy got brought in as the help, and he ended up doing most of it. And mostly, it sounds like mostly kind of spur of the moment, like, you know, on the day of, he had to figure out
That's so funny.
How to come up with the gag.
I know I've seen a couple Scream Factory special features with effects people, and it always seems to be the case that they're just kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool, especially if they haven't done it before, and just kind of like, yeah, we just came up with that.
Oh man, my favorite is when you kind of breaking off this movie, when we talk about the movie Scanners, how they came up with the exploding head. And,
what did they say for that?
They just said, fuck it, get a shotgun. They shot it with a shotgun.
That's right. Okay, now I think I remember.
And it looks great. Looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, the movie's available we're recording it now. We're recording on a Saturday morning, and for now, Nightmare's available for $28.99. It's a bit of a price. His movies are always a bit pricey, even once you get to shipping. But I'm glad I own this. And if you're someone like us who likes things a little more on the edge, just a little more out there, this is definitely something to add to your collection, because it's definitely a conversation starter for sure.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if you're worried about the money, which I totally get, keep in mind that these runs are really limited, and at the worst case, you buy it, you hate it, give it about 6 months, and you can sell it and probably make a little money. And I don't necessarily encourage people to do that, but I'm just saying, if it's not if it hasn't found a happy home, there's somebody else out there that wants it, and there's no need to scalp people, but you will get your money back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's that kind of thing. But
and that's been the fun thing about kind of buying movies from these smaller companies. I've noticed if there is one that I watch, like I'm like, I just don't. I'm not feeling what other people are feeling. I always try to sell it for the exact money I paid for it. Yeah. And just make my money back, and you're good to go. So, but yeah, I mean, it's an oddity for sure, but I think it's a fun one.
Yeah, no, like I said, I see the appeal, definitely. There's that way that Joe Gibson described it, you know, that sort of between haunting and ineptitude. And I know that sounds totally insulting, but there's something about movies like that really kind of stick with you, because you'll never know. You can always err on the side, like I said, of just somebody that had no fucking clue what they were doing. But regardless, when you walk away from it, if it sticks with you, and this movie did kind of stick in my head for a little while, I got to give it some credit for that. You know?
Definitely. Yep.
So,
all right. Well, this is a short and sweet episode. Next week we'll be back with Brad. I'm not sure, like, our schedules are so ridiculous. It looks like we have an interview show coming up that Brad's booked, so it might be just me and Brad on the next episode. I do want to get to Nightbreed, and I'm lobbying that all three of us discuss the director's cut of Nightbreed, because I hear it's something to definitely pay attention to and discuss. So I know that Brad hates Nightbreed, or he's not a fan. So I'm hoping we can get together and we can watch the director's cut and discuss, you know, how and compare it to the theatrical cut, which I'm hearing some good stuff. So I don't know. Don't want to oversell it. And I know we've had people request on Twitter that we cover Nightbreed, so that will definitely be happening hopefully within the next few weeks. Schedules, you know, if the stars align and we can all three of us get together.
What's the official date on the release on that one? I forget.
I think it's October 14th, I believe.
Okay, so it's next week. All right, good.
Or you'll be hearing this today. If it's on Monday, it's coming out tomorrow.
Great. Yeah, no, I'm very curious to watch, because I remember, I don't think I've seen it since the 90s. My best friend in high school was obsessed with Clive Barker for a short period, and I feel like we saw it in the theater. I don't know how we would have, but yeah, I just remember seeing it and being I liked it, but it was one of those movies that I don't think I was fully on board with, and I don't remember why. I remember liking a lot of the creatures and the creature design, but maybe not completely understanding it. And maybe part of the reason was one cut versus another or something. I don't remember, but I'm very curious to revisit that is the bottom line. So.
Yep. I remember we'll talk more about diving more into Nightbreed when we get together, but yeah, my main memory of this movie and the reason why I like it is the creature designs.
Yeah.
They're all interesting. And yeah, I think the story ended up I would get kind of bored through the middle of the movie and kind of tune out and then watch it through the end.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see it. I'm going to watch the director's cut first. I haven't revisit it in, probably over a decade. And I'm going to watch the director's cut first and then revisit the theatrical cut, hopefully.
Cool.
So, but that should be exciting. I know some people have requested we talk about like Leprechaun and stuff like that. I'm not sure we're going to go that mainstream with the movies. I think we're trying to keep the stuff a little more on the edge of things that not everyone's seen. So I think Nightbreed's going to be the most popular one we'll end up talking about for these next few episodes.
Cool.
But I don't know, we got other interviews where I know we want to talk The Battery. So we'll see. I never know what's going to happen until the week we record what we're talking about. So, anyway, anything we're missing about this movie? I think about Nightmare.
I mean, I think we've covered everything we can cover about it. It'd be great to have Brad's perspective because I'm sure he would add a good deal.
Next show, I'm gonna get Brad's perspective on this movie and we'll have a little segment on what he thinks.
Nice.
Because it's weird not having Brad on.
Yes.
I'll admit, and I apologize if this is a little more low key than you used to. But, I think we may do more of these every now and then. But there's a couple things that, I know Brad's not interested in talking about that maybe, Brian and I are maybe. So we may have, more of these every now and then. Maybe we'd keep them to like half hour to 45 minutes, just kind of little, kind of bonus episodes or something, but.
Cool.
We'll see. Stay tuned. I wish we could have more of a schedule, but we don't. So, all right, cool. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the ScreamCast. You can find us over at thescreamcast.com. There should be links to all of our Twitters on there. You can also go to Twitter. Our Twitter handle is scream_cast. And in the little info header, there's links to our personal Twitters as well. Do you have anything coming up that we should know about, Brian? Or like any lists that you're going to be posting on your site or anything like that?
Nah, we're doing underrated thrillers right now. I think that's the only foreseeable. I need to think of another series after that. I'm running out of steam. I need to dig in and really figure that out. But
regroup. Take a second to regroup.
Absolutely. But that's what's going on. If people want to check out Rupert Pupkin Speaks, the underrated thriller series is going on now, which is semi-Halloween appropriate. I've done underrated horror a couple times, or I already do another one. But so there may be some horror-y stuff you might find. I don't know. But regardless, it's fun.
I asked Brad this on the last episode. Are you trying to do 31 horror movies a day or anything like that?
I wish I could. I just never, with yourself, I'm guessing too.
I tried so hard. And then we were on vacation. I couldn't keep it up.
That's what I mean. Like you just, with the kids and everything, you just never know how exhausted you're going to be. There may be a night when you feel like staying up till 12:30 or 1 o'clock when you have to work the next day and watching something, but you just can't count on it. Especially lately, I just kind of am like, you know what? I'm just tired. I just need to go to sleep. Yep. So even when I have movies I need to cover to review or for a podcast or whatever, there are some nights where I just sleep just sounds so good. So that will fuck up any 31 days of Halloween schedule. So I would love to try it at some point, but I'm not working on it this year.
I have my list that I'm going to try to get through. I'm probably not going to hit them all, but we'll see. I did watch The Hunger.
I saw that and you really dug it. That's great.
Man. That's a fantastic movie. That needs a Blu-ray release.
It totally does.
It's a beautifully filmed movie.
Yeah.
By Ridley Scott. Or is it Ridley Scott or Tony Scott?
Tony Scott. Yeah. No, it's a really cool. My wife's a big fan of that one too. It's one of those that's lesser known and totally, like you say, needs a Blu-ray release.
It does, man. It's good. It's really good.
I could see maybe like a Warner Archive, cause it is a Warner movie. Maybe they bring it out. It's maybe just right on the edge of something they might end up doing. So don't rule it out.
And the reason I say it, it's just impeccably shot. Like there's just scenes in there. Like they looked pretty good on DVD. I was watching. Yeah. But, I think would look pretty stunning in high definition.
I agree.
Tony Scott, R.I.P. I always dig what he does with the camera, and he's just was always a super interesting, almost more interesting than I think Ridley Scott. He actually tried to be different with every film.
I would say absolutely more interesting, especially if you look at the whole career, and you take some of the stuff Ridley's been doing lately, and the stuff Tony was doing. I mean, they were all, I don't know, but I think the Hunger is a really neat place for people to go that think they know Tony Scott if they haven't seen it, because it's a different thing for him. It's a calling card kind of movie.
Plus a Susan Sarandon lesbian scene.
Oh, she's so cute in that movie, man. So cute.
All right, and with that, we'll sign off. Brian, thanks for hanging out, man. Good to talk to you again.
Sorry I was away so long. We'll try to make it a little more regular. I mean, I know my schedule is still crappy as always, but I love being a part of the show, and so I'll do my best.
Well, this month's a bit crazy with Brad too and myself, so hopefully next year we can actually make it more Halloween centric. But we'll go from there. We'll figure it out.
Cool.
All right. Well, all of you have a great week. We will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, don't tell me you're leaving. The party's just begun.